Thanks, Jordan, and thank you all for tuning in to our first earnings call as a public company. Before I jump into the results and the events of the quarter, I wanted to give you some background for those who are new to the Ionq story. Ionq makes the world's most powerful quantum computers, and we differ from most of our competitors by using a unique trapped ion approach. We employ some of the world's foremost talent in our space, including our co-founders, Dr. Jungsang Kim and Dr. Chris Monroe. Both have been trailblazers in the world of quantum computing for decades and sit on the White House's National Quantum Initiative Advisory Committee. They are some of the most cited quantum computing researchers in the industry with complementary skill sets in electronics and experimental physics. In the 6 years since Ionq's founding, we've made significant strides in taking our revolutionary trapped ion technology out of the lab and putting it into the hands of our customers as a commercial-grade, readily available quantum computer. Ionq's hardware is being used by companies and partners to push the boundaries in areas like machine learning, financial modeling, logistics optimization, and even quantum video games. At a high level, I am pleased to announce that Ionq is tracking at or ahead of schedule on all critical path items underpinning our business. We manufacture and operate the best quantum computers in the world, and our mission is to make our quantum computers even more accessible and to nurture a global developer ecosystem. In the next few minutes, I'll take you through Ionq's strong progress against its technical milestones we outlined earlier in the year, how we are continuing to broaden and deepen our ecosystem, and how we are accelerating in scaling and commercialization. Let's begin with the impressive progress we have made on scaling our hardware. Quantum computing is a next-generation form of computation similar to how a GPU differs from a CPU. There are several approaches to quantum computing. Ionq's technology used trapped ions for our qubits, or the quantum bits underlying our systems. We chose trapped ions because we believe they exhibit qualities that are well suited for stability and their ability to scale. It can be hard to evaluate the relative merits of various quantum compute platforms in the market. However, the recent publication of the benchmarking study of all commercially available quantum computers by the QEDC, a third-party industry group, confirmed that Ionq's computers are best in class along key dimensions such as their accuracy while running algorithms with high circuit width and circuit depth. Ionq's hardware outperformed the field, outpacing entities from IBM, Honeywell, and Rigetti. For additional details, we refer you to the original paper and a blog post on our website that walks you through the value of the algorithm-based benchmarks, the specific tests performed, and the conclusions of the paper. Broadly speaking, every quantum computing company is working to increase the number of qubits in their systems and at the same time reduce the prevalence of errors in order to improve the capacity of their platforms. For our quantum processing unit, or QPU, that is designed to allow us to increase the number of qubits in our system while maintaining stability. We believe this creates a path to scale that could allow us to place hundreds of qubits on a single chip, up from the dozens we have on chips today. In early October, researchers from Ionq and the University of Maryland published results in a prominent peer-reviewed journal that documented best-in-class error correction technology. This joint study with Duke University, the University of Maryland, and the Georgia Institute of Technology was the first, and so far the only one, on any quantum computing system to show fault-tolerant error correction working in practice. Solving error correction is critical to creating quantum computers large enough to deal with the complex problems that governments, businesses, and societies face today. In summary, we are confident that our technical progress to date will allow Ionq to continue its leadership in the quantum industry. Next, I'm excited to update you on how we are bringing quantum out of the lab and into the real world. Our goal is to enable every developer to use Ionq's quantum hardware and create applications that take advantage of the unique strengths of our quantum computers. Year to date, we've accomplished what we believe to be the two most important steps in making Ionq's quantum hardware widely accessible: broad cloud partnerships and broad software support. First, Ionq is the only provider of quantum computing hardware available on all three major public clouds. We already have 2 quantum systems available for our customers through every major U.S. cloud provider, including Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud. We've also completed the construction of our third, more powerful system, which we announced at our second quarter business update call on September 22nd this year. This is now available as a private beta for select customers via our dedicated cloud. We are the only provider of quantum computing hardware available on all 3 major public clouds. And second, we've integrated Ionq's hardware with every major quantum software development kit, including platforms like IBM's Qiskit and Google's Cirq. This simplifies access to our hardware for hundreds of thousands of developers already on those platforms. Lastly, I will discuss the great progress we've made on the commercial side of the business and in building the company. We are proud to announce that we've tripled our bookings expectations for fiscal year 2021. This past quarter, we announced partnerships and collaborations with world-class companies, including Goldman Sachs, Fidelity Center for Applied Technology, Accenture, and GE Research, as well as with educational institutions like the University of Maryland. We continue to make progress towards new and exciting applications and customer wins. We have also fortified Ionq's balance sheet in recent months, having completed our business combination with DMY Technology Group 3 on September 30th, 2021. Ionq is now the first publicly traded pure-play quantum computing company in the world. We are fortunate to have Hyundai Motor Company and Kia Corporation, Silver Lake, MSD Partners, Breakthrough Energy Ventures, NEA, GV, and Fidelity Management and Research Company as stockholders of Ionq. As a result of this transaction, we received net proceeds of $575 million, which will fund our commercialization efforts and accelerate the development of future generations of quantum computers. While we achieved all these milestones through Q3 2021 with comparatively modest funding, we are now one of the best-funded quantum computing companies in the world. Part of scaling the business is growing the team, including recent key hires. We brought in Ariel Braun as Senior Vice President of Product Management. Ariel's background is truly impressive, with extensive experience across diverse roles and technology areas, working in companies ranging from early startups to the Fortune 100. In addition to co-founding Pure Digital Technology, which generated over $1 billion in revenue with the Flip Video camcorder, Ariel led Cisco's consumer product portfolio, as well as Google's AR and VR product management. We hired Dean Kassaman as Vice President of Research and Development. Prior to joining us, he was Senior Director of Advanced Technology for Blue Origin. There, Dean established and led the team responsible for company-wide applied research in the support of their launch vehicle, engines, and in-space product lines. Dean has over 25 years of leadership in software, hardware, and technology development, including advanced modeling and planning roles at both Aspen Technology and Amazon. We are thrilled to welcome Ariel and Dean to the Ionq family and look forward to working with them as we continue to build out our world-class team. We are beyond excited to begin our life as a public company, and I want to thank all our board members, advisors, investors, employees, and everyone who makes our public listing possible. And with that, I'd like to turn over the call to our CFO, Thomas Cramer. Thomas?
Thank you, Peter, and good afternoon, everyone. I would like to start off by quickly going through some of our financial results in more detail. Earlier in Q3, we raised our full year 2021 forecasted bookings expectations from $5 to $15 million. Today, I am happy to announce that as of the end of Q3, our total bookings for the year have already exceeded our increased expectations for the full year, ending up at $15.1 million. We believe this is a recognition of the promise our customers see in our platform and resulted from customers buying more and also earlier than we had expected. Given that we are still at the beginning of our commercialization phase, and that in addition to transactional-based cloud revenue, we sell large contracts where customers pay for reserved compute access, we should expect bookings to continue to be lumpy for quite some time. On the top line, we had $233,000 of revenue in the third quarter of 2021 for a total of $451,000 year to date. We had no revenue in the prior year period. Moving down the income statement, our total operating costs and expenses for the quarter were $10.8 million, up from $3.6 million in the prior year period. Breaking this down a bit, our research and development costs in the third quarter of 2021 were $6.2 million compared to $2.3 million in the prior year period, as we continue to invest in building our technology advantage. Our selling and marketing costs in the quarter were $1.3 million compared to $81,000 in the prior year period. This is due to the ramp up in our commercialization efforts and focus on sales and partnerships. Our general and administrative costs were $2.5 million compared to $727,000 in the prior year period due to increased headcount and overhead associated with scaling. We expect our general and administrative expenses to increase for the foreseeable future as we scale headcount with the growth of our business and as a result of operating as a public company. You may also note the $4.3 million non-operating cost on our P&L, which is the portion of the transaction costs allocated to the liability classified warrants from the original DMY3 IPO. This is a one-time non-cash expense and will not be a recurring charge. This resulted in a net loss of $14.8 million compared to a net loss of $3.6 million in the prior year period. Our adjusted EBITDA loss for the quarter was $7.9 million compared to the $3 million in the comparable year prior period. As a reminder, due to the nature of our business and technology, we expect to continue to build our investment in our business for the immediate future. On our balance sheet, cash and cash equivalents were $587 million as of September 30th, 2021, which was largely a result of the close of our transaction with DMY3. The transaction closed on September 30th and provided us with net proceeds of $575 million. We intend to use these funds to bring new generations of hardware with higher capacity to market and to build out our commercial capabilities, in addition to investing in the quantum computer ecosystem. We are well capitalized and well positioned to benefit from Capitol Hill's interest in quantum, as shown by the infrastructure bill. Turning briefly to our fourth quarter and full year guidance, we continue to see strong demand for our compute platform. In the third quarter, we benefited from some contract bookings closing sooner than anticipated. Still, in the fourth quarter, we expect an additional $600,000 to $800,000 in new total contract value bookings. As a result, we anticipate that we will end the year between $15.7 million and $15.9 million in bookings. This is well above our original 2021 estimate of $5 million and also significantly above our updated full year target of $15 million. The closing of bookings in Q3 will have a direct impact on recognized revenue, and accordingly, we anticipate our top line for Q4 to end up between $1 million and $1.2 million for the full year revenue of $1.5 million to $1.7 million for 2021. Now I'd like to touch on two topics that we felt were important to mention outside of our financial results. First, the redemption rate observed during our de-SPAC process was notably low at approximately 2.5% of the outstanding shares of DMY3. We take this as an indication of our investor confidence in our long-term prospects, which can be further surmised by the fact that 71% of our investor base agreed to lock-up periods ranging between 6 to 18 months. Second, I want to mention that we expect a large number of one-time transaction-related expenses, in addition to costs of being public, to be paid out in the fourth quarter of 2021. The largest of these is a D&O insurance policy, which will be approximately $2 million. Finally, I'd like to move on to some of the partnerships that we announced in the quarter. As Peter touched upon earlier, in Q3, we announced a partnership with the University of Maryland to create the National Quantum Lab at Maryland, or QLab. The QLab will serve as an important conduit for some of the rising stars of quantum and for the scientific community as a whole to pursue world-leading research through hands-on access to commercial-grade quantum computer. Access to the facility will be open to UMD-affiliated students, faculty, researchers, staff, and partners across the country, allowing collaboration with our own scientists and engineers. We will be the exclusive provider of quantum computers to the QLab, and as such, the University of Maryland is an important customer. We could not be more excited about this partnership and look forward to future projects with the University of Maryland, which has made a name for itself as an international powerhouse for quantum research. Next, in collaboration with Goldman Sachs and QCware, we demonstrated how our quantum computers are powerful enough to run an algorithm that lays the foundation for speeding up Monte Carlo simulations. As many of you know, Monte Carlo simulation is an important analytical tool for a variety of industries, including financial services, drug discovery, robotics, and climate science. We are working to design a number of quantum algorithms intended to let firms evaluate risk and simulate prices for a variety of financial instruments much faster than classical computers are capable of doing today. In a similar vein, we also released a paper in collaboration with the Fidelity Center for Applied Technology, demonstrating how our quantum computers can outperform classical computers in the direct generation of high-quality data used in testing financial models. We believe the new technique is a significant step in developing applications for quantum finance, but it is also applicable to a broad set of other industries. Obviously, we are very encouraged by these results and their potential. Additionally, we announced a multi-year strategic relationship with Accenture intended to accelerate the development of quantum computed business applications. Accenture's experience in quantum, its work with companies across a wide range of industries, and its ability to design customized industry solutions tailored to our hardware will enable us to help more companies become quantum ready in the future. Lastly, we announced a partnership with GE Research to explore how our quantum computers can be used in the field of risk analysis. Risk analysis, which is common in the finance industry, can apply to a wide set of complex systems, such as supply chains, environmental systems, and cybersecurity networks. We are encouraged by our financial performance this quarter and look forward to continuing to execute on our roadmap. And with that, operator, you may now open the line for questions.
We will now begin the question and answer session. To ask a question, you may press star then 1 on your telephone keypad. If you are using a speakerphone, please pick up your handset before pressing the keys. If at any time your question has been addressed and you would like to withdraw your question, please press star then 2. At this time, we will pause momentarily to assemble our roster. The first question comes from Katy Huberty with Morgan Stanley. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good afternoon, and congratulations on the public listing and many product announcements and milestones in the quarter. I have a couple of questions. The first is about the bookings and mix of bookings year to date. What can you tell us about the number of customers or deals within that 50 million of bookings, and about the mix of customers and use cases that you've seen this year?
Hi, Katie. Thanks for calling in, and excellent questions. What we have seen to date is that we've seen thousands of customers running projects on our machines with billions of shots in terms of running their their quantum computations. We continue to see a mix of customers coming in through our public cloud, where we actually don't know who all of the customers are because that sits with the public cloud provider. And we have customers on our private cloud as well. We are, to date, not going to break out the individual customer names because many of these are actually covered by confidentiality clauses.
Okay, and then as it relates to the cost structure, the fact that G&A today is greater than sales and marketing just speaks to how early you are in the commercialization phase. How should we think about sales and marketing expense scaling longer term? Should we model that as a percentage of bookings? And then just remind us, at what revenue scale would you expect the business to be profitable on a non-GAAP basis?
So, excellent questions. We look forward to providing updates on our future cost structure as well as earnings on the Q4 call. However, you are absolutely right in that we anticipate our commercialization to ramp up, and hence sales and marketing should grow as a percentage of our total cost basis.
Okay, and then just lastly, high-level thoughts. I know it's early to be specific, but you've outperformed the bookings target by 3x in 2021. Your original target for 2022 was $15 million, so flat with what you've executed to this year. I imagine that there's some upward pressure potentially on next year outlook. Just any thoughts as to how the outperformance year to date influences qualitatively your view of next year? Thank you.
Absolutely. We're extremely happy to have seen how many customers have been willing to invest in us early on in our life cycle as a commercial company that is offering products for sale. And we anticipate that this will continue to happen. And we look forward to updating the market on our expectations for 2022 sales on our Q4 earnings call.
Thank you.
The next question comes from David Williams with Benchmark. Please go ahead.
Hey, good afternoon. Thanks for letting me ask the question, and congrats on the solid progress here.
Thank you.
I wanted to maybe ask on the competitive environment, and you spent some time talking about this, clearly made a lot of progress here, but when you think about some of the competitors within the space, what are the key differentiators you think in Ionq that you might be able to exploit? Or maybe, I realize we're still in the early days of quantum technology, but beyond the metrics, how do you think about the competitive landscape?
Well, hi, this is Peter, and thanks for the call. In general, there's a lot of noise about total number of qubits from competitors. And as we've said before, we don't think that by itself is going to foretell who's going to win the quantum space race. Other factors such as average 2-qubit gate fidelity, the error correction overhead, qubit connectivity, and eventually the price per qubit are going to be the kind of need to be considered as well. All quantum companies know this, even though they don't talk about it. And we continue to believe ours will lead to the best quantum computer in the future.
Fantastic, thank you. And then maybe as I understand some of the aspects around the differing approaches or models, maybe gate versus annealing, it seems optimization type problems are less tolerant, or maybe have a little more overhead than maybe the gate approach. Can you maybe just talk about that a little bit in terms of the applications you think Ionq systems will have the best advantage? Maybe any specific areas you think you can capture here?
Hi, good question. This is Chris Monroe, Chief Scientist. So the annealing model of quantum computing is highly experimental now. It's not clear that quantum even plays a role in what's going on there. It's really apples and oranges comparing that to the gate model, which is the type of computing mode we and most of the others in the industrial space work on. And the benefit of the gate model is that it's proven to be universal. You can perform any quantum algorithm with a gate machine. It's not clear you can do that with an annealer, although you may be able to do interesting things with an annealer. I think that's left to research. So With the gate model, again, we can characterize the number of qubits, the number of gates you can perform, and compare the different technologies.
Okay, very helpful, thanks. And one last one, maybe, if you can maybe talk a little bit about the new chip that you have announced, and just curious, maybe you can walk through the timing and when we should expect to have maybe some early performance data. And then is this a fundamental change in maybe the epitaxial process, or maybe the circuit architecture, or is this just maybe a refinement of your existing approach?
Chris Monroe here again. So the new chip we demonstrated allowed us an intermediate way to scale up our system by multiplexing several cores of ion trap, of collections of qubits. Now, the chip itself, it's made of a different material than we had used previously, but there's nothing quantum about the chip. It's more of the support structure. It's part of the control system. And we anticipate in the future probably changing that around too as need be. The main point of that chip is scaling and allowing us to get algorithmic qubit numbers so that we can hit useful applications.
Fantastic. Thanks so much. Looking forward to seeing the 4Q results.
The next question comes from Ruben Roy with West Park Capital. Please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for taking my questions. I guess either Peter or Chris, just to kind of follow up on that last question, seeing that the bookings are moving higher, which is great. Just wondering if you can give us an update on systems manufacturing progress. I think Peter mentioned you're ahead of schedule on most of your metrics, but maybe a little bit of an update on where you stand with systems at this point, how you're looking for next year would be helpful.
Hi, Ruben. Happy to answer. So at the current time, we have two systems which are servicing jobs out on the cloud for all three cloud partners and internal for our private cloud. And then there is an additional system, which is the we call the 32 qubit system, which right now is in private beta. And we have customers, and in fact, actually, Goldman Sachs and Fidelity have been running jobs on that system as well as other customers. So that one we haven't put out into the cloud yet. We will expect to do that in 2022. And then in addition, there is 3 additional systems under construction in various phases of development that we're building right now that we'll be talking about in the future.
Great. Thank you, Peter. To follow up on that, I guess, and following up on a question from earlier just around expenses, I guess, Thomas, maybe we could talk a little bit about how you're thinking about R&D. I don't think you really talked about scaling that, and how that might impact the model near term as the bookings go up and you are working on these new systems. I would imagine it's more of development than research at this point, but if you can give us a little bit of how you're thinking about R&D, that'd be helpful.
Absolutely. Good to hear you, Ruben. I think you covered it very nicely. We will absolutely continue to scale up our R&D investment, but it's mostly on the D and not on the R. Most of the technology that we are utilizing has already been laid out and documented through 25 years of research from Dr. Kim and Dr. Monroe. And what we are doing is executing on this roadmap that they've already laid out. Thankfully, most of our parts are standard off the rack. We like to joke that we can buy them on Amazon, but in reality, well, we do, of course, buy some things on Amazon. We buy these from standardized makers of traditional parts and some untraditional ones that we won't cover on this call, but that's our secret sauce, of course. But these parts are neither very unique or very expensive, which allows us to have a much lower cost base than what you would expect from an early stage hardware manufacturer. And we are very happy to see that we've been able to do this with a limited investment, and already we're seeing quite some pickup in the market.
Great. Thanks, Thomas. Last question, since we do have Dr. Monroe on the call, wondering, you started to talk a little bit about the chip and scalability. the reconfigurable chip. What are sort of the milestones that you're looking for next? When you talk about scalability, I think you guys have talked about using an optical interconnect, to scale into systems that have higher qubits. Is that sort of the next milestone, or what should we be thinking about in terms of, moving forward towards commercialization of that new technology?
Yeah, thanks for the question. That's certainly one of the milestones. I would say one aspect that sets our company apart from the entire market is we have a very deliberate path to scale on several fronts. One of them is the multi-core architecture that we demonstrated the basics of on this recent chip, where we, on a single chip, can have many cores of individual, we call them local quantum computers, and it is reconfigurable. It allows us to move qubits back and forth between the cores. And then, as you correctly noted, our out game is to move the information off chip to another chip. And here we envision something like a data center, where each chip would be in its own device, connected by optical fiber to another device. And then it comes down to, how much land do you have to put racks in and scale up your quantum computer accordingly. Now, again, we have very concrete plans to do that, and we understand as we scale that we will have full connectivity. Any qubit in the entire system can directly talk to any other qubit, and so this is one advantage to scale that we're going to pull away even more notably compared to today as we scale. So you're right. The photonic interconnect is a key part of our scaling strategy going forward, but it's not the only one.
Excellent. I appreciate all the detail, and congrats, guys, on the continued execution.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The next question comes from Richard Shannon with Craig-Hallum. Please go ahead.
Well, great. Thanks for taking my questions as well, guys. Maybe a quick financial question for Thomas. Gross margins. I think in your SPAC presentation deck, you talked about kind of a 40s percent or so gross margins. We're seeing it so far this year at kind of around zero here. When do we get up to the levels that we're talking about here, like 40s or even higher here? Is this something that you expect in the fourth quarter or soon thereafter?
So the gross margins that we spoke of earlier was on a unit lifecycle basis, and we think that we are actually delivering towards those already. We will continue, obviously, to see a very modest gross margin as we are so early on in the commercialization phase, and we look forward to updating you on the expectations for gross margins in 2022 on our Q4 call.
Okay, fair enough. Second question on bookings. Thomas, again, in your prepared remarks, you talked about your bookings and your outlook for next year, and I think in response to a question as well, but you also talked about it being lumpy. I think you had a small number of contracts that provided most of the upside to your 2021 number here. Can you give us a sense of what you're looking at in terms of the bookings pipeline today, whether it hits that 15 million goal or whatever it ends up being next year? Like, what is the 80? Is there like an 80-20 rule to this, or even a more extreme version of that helps you get to that 15 million number or whatever it becomes next year? And can you give us some color as to how that'll develop?
Absolutely. So we have been busily talking to potential customers and partners for probably 2 years now. And it's only been recently that we've been able to come to the market with an actual product that we can sell. And what we have seen is that the reception in the market was larger and faster than we had anticipated, and that refers to the lumpiness. And as you know, when you look at recognized revenue, that tends to straighten itself out, particularly when you have a contract that you can straight line, which most of ours are. However, the actual time when it comes in can create spikes where you'll see that it goes up, and one quarter might be higher than the next, like Q3 was higher than we are anticipating Q4 being. So that is just the nature of the beast when you sell large deals, and we anticipate that this will continue. for quite some time, although we anticipate our recognized revenue to be much smoother. We are busily working away on our next year bunch of sales, of course, and we look forward to updating you on our expectations on the Q4 earnings call.
Okay, we look forward to hearing about that. A couple more questions for me. One for Peter. The paper you put out a number of weeks ago regarding the benchmarking organization and the data, which I read the paper and it seems very complementary to Ionq in general here. Maybe can you tell us about the reactions you're hearing from customers, researchers, and even competitors in the market?
Well, this validates what we've been saying, kind of all along, that now having an industry association be doing kind of independent benchmarking and showing that our quantum computers are the best. In part two, you also hear it from customers when they say we've tried this on various other platforms, but would only run on Ionq's hardware. And so, you're hearing it now both in kind of customer voices and also now in an industry kind of industry benchmark. And so we do think that these industry benchmarks are the way kind of going forward to be able to compare systems. In the future, we hope everyone else will join kind of, the benchmarking effort so that we can compare these systems fairly from one vendor to the next. Obviously, at the current time, we're doing quite well on that as the kind of leading vendor in this space.
Okay, thanks for that feedback. My last question, I guess I'd love to hear from both Peter and Chris on this one. As you think about the industry developing over the medium to long term, to what degree do you see this market being a winner-take-all kind of opportunity?
Well, the TAM for quantum is huge, so it's hard to imagine one company taking it all. That would be like saying somehow like Intel was the one that was going to take all over the entire, classical computing market. So we do think that there will be space for multiple players. There'll probably be space for multiple approaches to quantum in who's winning. And we think those things will be good things for customers. Competition makes us better.
Okay, great. That is all for me. Thank you.
Again, if you have a question, please press star, then 1. The next question comes from Jack Andrews with Needham. Please go ahead.
Well, good afternoon, and congratulations on the results. I was wondering if you could speak to the overall hiring environment. Just given your efforts to scale your organization, how hard is it to find relevant people with the requisite quantum computing skills, or are there similar backgrounds that you think are appropriate and you can leverage in terms of building your organization?
It's a great question. Thanks, Jack. Well, the quantum talent war is indeed heating up, but we found that those with quantum skill sets are drawn to work on the most advanced technology in the world at Ionq. And we're lucky to have our two co-founders who are the brightest minds in the field, and often people are drawn to them to come work with us. So I think that makes all the difference. We are working to create a quantum Silicon Valley in College Park, and with a symbiotic relationship with the University of Maryland, that continues to also give us a pipeline of new talent as they come out of the universities. We do think kind of internationally as well that often talent isn't just focused in the United States, and so sometimes it's overseas. So what we can, as a country, can do to help us make that talent available here is also important. But that's probably outside of our control.
Well, thanks for the perspective. And just as a follow-up question, I was wondering if you could just drill down a little bit into the traction that with the public cloud vendors in particular. Is there any one of the three major hyperscalers that you're particularly optimistic about that can help move the needle for you here in the near term?
The answer is we unfortunately can't can't tell you, due to agreements with them as to what the sales are for one versus the other.
Got it. Appreciate that. Thank you.
This concludes our question and answer session. I would like to turn the conference back over to Peter Chapman for any closing remarks.
Thanks everyone for attending today. Any company is the sum of its employees, and we would not be here without the incredible dedication of the Ionq team. I'd like to thank each and every one of our employees for their contribution. We continue to be focused on our long-term goals of investing and building the business to make Ionq the clear market leader in quantum computing. We will use these calls as a forum to highlight the key milestones along our journey, and we look forward to updating the entire investment community on our progress going forward. Thank you, everyone, for taking the time to listen today.
The conference has now concluded. Thank you for attending today's presentation. You may now disconnect.
네, 이렇게 정리를 한번 해보겠습니다. 네, 그래서 내용을 보시면은 안타깝네요. 특별한 내용이 없습니다. 그래서 처음에 CEO인 피터 챕맨이 나와서 이제 회사의 목적, 어떤 기술을 쓰는가에 대해서 먼저 설명을 해줬고, 그 다음에 이제 CFO인 토마스 크레이머가 나와서 말 그대로 그 Financial Results 나왔던 거, 재무 실적 결과를 그대로 읽어줬고, 거기서 핵심 인재 몇 명 채용한 거 얘기해줬고, 특별한 내용은 없었고요. 그래서 Q&A 쪽에서 나왔던 게 어떤 고객들이 있는가라고 얘기했는데 그것도 비밀성 때문에 얘기를 할 수 없었다. 경쟁자들에 비해 강점은 이제 아까 QEDC가 발표했던 벤치마킹 결과 같이 이제 어제도 IBM이 127큐비트 이런 뉴스를 냈는데, 큐비트 수 자체가 중요한 게 아니라 피델리티, 연결성, 게이트, 그 게이트에서의 에러가 나지 않는 것, 이런 것들이 함께 고려해야 되는데, 모든 양자 컴퓨터들은 이것을 알면서도 확실히 얘기하고 있지 않는 부분이 있다. 그래서 제 생각에는 아직도 아이온큐가 큐비트 수가 IBM이 127을 낸다고 하더라도 이 이온 트랩 방식의 안정성이나 이런 안정성은 높고 에러율은 낮기 때문에 충분히 아직도 선두 리더라고 생각을 하고요. 이제 IBM이랑 좀 경쟁이 세게 붙지 않을까라고 생각을 하고 있고, 그래서 또 그 얘기를 했죠. 확장성 얘기를 했어요. 그래서 이게 크리스 먼로우가 얼마 전에 HPC 와이어라는 매체와의 인터뷰에서 이제 어떻게 이 이온 트랩 방식으로 이제 다른 초전도체 방식들은 이온 트랩 방식의 확장성에 문제가 있다라고 했는데, 그에 대한 반박으로 구체적으로 우리는 이미 데이터 센터급으로 확장할 수 있는 구체적인 콘크리트한 계획을 가지고 있다라고 얘기를 하면서 인터뷰를 했었는데, 그거에 대한 논문도 이제 저희 카톡방에 계신 분들이 올려주셨기 때문에 이미 확장성은 문제가 아니다. 그래서 시간이 좀 더 필요할 것 같다라고 생각을 하고, 아까 이 부킹이 럼피하다는 게 변동성이 있다라는 뜻인데, 잠재 고객들과 2년 동안 얘기를 해왔고, 긴 시간 동안 얘기를 해왔고, 이제 막 제품을 팔 수 있게 된 단계가 됐기 때문에 얼마나 큰 돈이 들어올지 확실히 알 수 없기 때문에 매출이, 이런 부킹이 이제 매출 예약이라고 해야 될까요? 이게 변동성이 클 수 있다라고 얘기를 해줬고요. 그리고 위너 테이크스 이라고 그래갖고 승자가 독식한다. 승자 독식인가? 양자 컴퓨터 분야도 그랬더니 CEO인 피터 챕맨이 양자 분야는 엄청나게 크고 전통 컴퓨터 분야에서 인텔이 독점을 하지 못했던 것과 같이 다양한 양자 컴퓨터에 대한 접근법, 초전도체나 이온 트랩 방식이나 스핀 큐비트 방식들이 이 시장 세그먼트를 나눠 가지지 않을까라는 얘기를 했고요. 채용 환경은 그대로 아직도 똑같은 얘기를 했어요. 쉽지 않고 대학 연계에서 뽑고 인터내셔널하게도 찾고 있다. 그 퍼블릭 클라우드 각사에 대한 매출도 구체적으로 나눠서 공개할 수는 없다라고 얘기를 해줬는데, 역시 특별한 얘기는 없었지만 뭐 이제 특별한 얘기가 없었기 때문에 오늘 애프터장에도 주가가 많이 떨어졌고 뭐 내일 장이 열리면 또 실망한 매물들이 많이 나올 수 있죠. 근데 뭐 돌려서 말하면 딱히 나쁜 것도 없었기 때문에 저는 뭐 지속적으로 투자를 할 생각이고요. 그래서 이제 크리스 먼로가 얘기했던 이 확장성에 대해서 집중할 필요가 있는데 지금 아직까지 다른 뭐 IBM 같은 회사도 구체적으로 확장을 어떻게 할 건지에 대해서는 얘기를 하지 않았어요. 뭐 언제 몇 단계까지 올리겠다라고 얘기를 했는데 크리스 먼로는 그 논문이 이미 발표가 돼서 그 데이터를 뭐라 그러죠? 보증을 해주기 때문에 이제 이 양자 컴퓨팅 분야의 발전이 가속화되고 있음을 저희가 보고 있고 여기서 이제 선두주자로서 아이온큐와 이온 트랩 진영의 아이온큐와 초전도체 방식의 IBM 이 둘이 아마 뜨겁게 붙지 않을까라고 생각을 하고 있습니다. 네, 그래서 오늘 저 6시에 켜서 거의 1시간 반 정도 했는데 400에서 500분 정도 함께 해주셔서 감사하고요. 또 뭐 후원도 이렇게 많이 해주셨네요. 감사합니다. AMA 컨설팅님, 뭐 행복님, 콕치킨조아님, 강재영님, 네, 너무 감사합니다. 저한테 쓰지 말고 아이온큐 주식 사는데 쓰시지 그러셨어요. 저는 뭐 유튜브 구독만 해주셔도 충분히 제가 전업할 수 있을 때까지 10만 되면 전업 고민할 텐데 네, 지금 꾸준히 늘고 있습니다. 거의 이틀에 1000명씩 늘고 있는데 참 유튜브를 4년 이상 해온 사람으로서 감사한 시기인 것 같고요. 뭐 제가 조금씩 사이즈가 커지면서 욕도 많이 먹고 여러 가지 어려운 상황들도 있지만 이것도 뭐 하나의 단련되는 과정이라고 생각을 하고 장기 투자하시는 분들 같이 모여주셔서 참 감사하고요. 우리가 이렇게 또 모여서 이 물량을 잠궜을 때 나오는 파급 효과가 생각보다 큽니다. 그래서 회사에서도 우리한테 감사해하고 있고 이제 어닝콜이 나왔으니까 저희 인터뷰 질문들 이제 곧 취합해서 보내서 이제 회사 측과 오피셜한 인터뷰를 가질 거예요. 근데 뭐 오늘도 보셨겠지만 정형화된 형식에서 벗어난 내용이 나오긴 어렵겠지만 저희 장기 투자자들이 뭉쳐서 이제 회사와 공식적인 행동을 했다는 것 자체에 의의가 있다고 생각을 합니다. 그래서 이 양자역학 강의 있는 거 아시죠? 그 모르시는 분들은 카톡방에 한번 여쭤봐 주시면 제가 링크 올려드릴게요. 지금 강사님 열심히 준비 중이시고요. 그래서 이제 27일부터 7주간 네 이제 양자역학의 기초부터 시작해서 고등학교 수준이라고 생각을 해서 거기서부터 시작해서 양자 알고리즘, 그 이온 트랩 기술에 대한 설명까지 해서 이제 아이온큐 투자자라면 꼭 알아야 될 그런 기술에 대해서 한번 같이 공부해 보도록 하겠습니다. 네, 그래서 이른 시간 이렇게 많이 함께 해주셔서 감사드립니다. 또 오늘 하루 잘 보내시고 네, 한 주도 승리하시기 바랍니다. 저는 이만 들어가 보도록 하겠습니다. 네, 감사합니다.